What is this evil lurking in our society that's representative of its ruin in meal prep?
We have a really clear picture of 2025 and how we're going to go about it.
I was like, we need to go to Vienna and do a whole feature-length documentary.
We are sitting in Albania. The afternoon we got there, we threw out the entire reason for going. Everything we'd prepped for being flushed down the toilet. If you wake up and there's something in your mouth, whatever happens next is going to be worse for your life. Like, nothing gets better.
Hey, welcome to The Create Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. We are back, apparently. Hello. It's odd to be doing this. My name is Kevin Lieber, and with me, as always, is Matthew Tabor.
We are back like Kevin's great Aunt Ethel's herpes sores on the corners of her mouth.
Oh, God.
When she leans in at the holidays to kiss. Oh, Kevin, no. That's when he sees him up close.
Scraps of fruitcake just dripping off of her mustache.
That's right. A little gravy from the mashed potatoes stuck in him. Little marshmallows from the sweet potatoes.
Do you like fruitcake?
It's okay. It's okay. Nobody like under 30 should legitimately want it. Like, it's okay to eat. It's not bad, but like, if you really like it, you're defective.
It's one of those things where I wonder if there is a good version that I just have never had. Because I've had that with foods before where I'm like, I don't like this food. And that's because I've had like a person who doesn't know how to make it right, make it, and it was bad. Mm-hmm. And anything can be bad if you suck at cooking. But then I've had, a good version of it. I'm like, oh, I actually like, Brussels sprouts. that could be pretty good.
It's funny because, a lot of people say that like, oh, I got an air fryer and all of a sudden Brussels sprouts are pretty good. Well, because nobody was air frying them, 20 years ago. That with the fruitcakes, those really dense cakes, they get so dry. But when people make them with something kind of thick that gives it moisture, like there are people who douse fruitcakes with rum. Mm-hmm. And that's a good fit with the fruit. It's a good fit with that kind of heavy brown bread. And it keeps it not cementy and dry. So it's totally possible, but it's seems like a delicate art to get it right. And is it worth the time and the trouble? I don't know. If somebody made a perfect fruitcake, how many people are going to go bananas over that? It's just, they'd be like, oh, this is good. That's the best you're ever going to get from a perfect fruitcake. So why not put everything into something that, that people are going to go nuts over?
Right. A thing that people already like, make a great version of a thing that people already like instead of mastering something that's kind of junk.
Yeah.
But we also talked about the other day how in America, we have just a horrible relationship with desserts and pastries and cakes and stuff in general, as opposed to the rest of the world who are like masterful at creating breakfast pastries and all kinds of different desserts and cakes. And if anybody has ever watched British Bake Off, which is like one of my favorite sort of relax comfort shows on planet Earth, just turn your brain off and just get like enveloped in the warm blanket of British Bake Off. The things that are on that show all look completely amazing. And I've never heard of any of it. And they've all heard of essentially all. They're like, oh, yes, tuxedo cake and, whatever these things are. Right. I'm like, what is that?
Yeah. So I've thought about this. It was maybe 2 days ago when you mentioned it. I was talking about Media Luna, which is APM still in. I think Media Luna is a thing in Brazil as well. But it's sort of like a crescent with a very thin, almost like a candy shell, right? It's a coating, a glaze that isn't sticky. And it's awesome. So I was thinking about specifically what's happening with this. And I think breakfast pastries, the world is superior. I think that's absolutely true. If it's like ruin your life, give you diabetes dessert, there's nothing worldwide that compares to the things that we make.
Oh, really?
Like a great pecan pie. Oh my God. That's just incredible. Key lime pie, to go on a tart side. I mean, yeah, if you want to just blow it out, then the US is where it's at. And the distinction that came to me is if you could somehow gather all the data from last meals before executions worldwide, what would that look like? And I don't think people are doing, like Nick says, Media Luna is a sweet croissant. Yeah. I don't think anybody's like, ooh, I'm dead tomorrow. It's going to go straight into my veins. I want a plate of Media Lunas. Like, no. It's be like, I want, Aunt Ethel's pecan pie. And I'm going to feel like I swallowed a bowling ball after, but I don't care.
Right. Some kind of ridiculous chocolate mousse that has like Oreo cookies crumbled on it and peanut butter slathering sauce. When it's taken to the extreme, that's where we shine, essentially, is what you're saying.
Did I ever give you any of the Buckeye balls that my mom makes?
No.
I mentioned these to NRM. I see them in the chat.
No, you haven't.
So NRM we were talking about Buckeyes, the actual thing, a Buckeye. And there's a confection, which you can get in the store. I've never had one that's kind of worth it, right? But it's essentially a peanut butter ball with the top dipped in chocolate. So like a third of it is covered in chocolate, and then you've got this round ball of peanut butter. And that's all it is.
It's a peanut butter cup.
That's all it is
in ball shape.
Pretty much, with the ratios radically different though. It's like 90-10 peanut butter.
Okay.
Which a cup can't compete with. But that's one of those things where it's like, a few of those, it's just all the sweetness you need for a year. It's incredible.
Well,
it's incredible.
I thought of a incredibly decadent dessert that you do know because you were the one who forced it upon me, thankfully, which was that peanut butter pie from Dinosaur Barbecue, which is diabetes in a tin container, essentially. I bought a whole pie of that, and it was ridiculous. It's so good, but you literally do get sugar high. Like you get high off of the amount of sugar in that pie. It alters your state of consciousness.
It really, truly does affect even a perfectly healthy person's blood sugar. It goes crazy. Like you're in trouble if you eat a lot of that. That's the kind of thing you just don't get that in like Spain. You're not going to go to Barcelona and, order a dessert at a restaurant and be like, whoa, my sugar's off the charts. I feel high from this. Be like, no, that was a really tasty 2 bites. That's so nice. Wow. I don't eat many things made of, like phyllo dough very often. The way that singular bite that constituted my dessert melted on my tongue. Oh, that's exceptional. No. This is like put your hands behind you, have somebody tie them, and just slam your face into the trough of dessert. And that's what you can't get elsewhere.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yes. Dessert torture is what you can. You can get delicious amuse-bouches elsewhere that we don't have. But not gun to your head diabetes desserts. That's what we revel in here in the States. All right.
We're the best at.
The main topic here is kind of where we've been and what we've been doing. But before
I don't even remember your name.
I don't either. I had to look it up on my passport. But the thing that I wanted to get to before that was something that you sent to me earlier, which I just thought was so funny. And you actually retweeted, which was this thing about meal prep.
Oh my God.
So
I can't believe it's real.
I pulled up the tweet that I don't even know. How did you even find this? This just came across your feed somehow.
Yeah, I follow Delusional Takes, I think is the account.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Delusional Takes has just all sorts of idiocy, so it could be about anything. They do a lot of political stuff, which is boring. But yeah, occasionally they do something that's just plain like head exploding. And this was one of them.
Yeah, yeah. I wouldn't say it exploded my head. I would say it certainly made my eyes cross in confusion. So this is the statement. This is the declaration that actually got almost 5 million views. All right, ready? Here it is. Do people realize that the concept of meal prep is the most hyper-individualistic capitalist concept that represents everything wrong with society? There's a lot going on there. There's a lot. I mean,
I don't know where you start. I legitimately do not know where you begin on that statement.
I mean, first of all, I'll start with this. The idea that meal prep is representative of everything that's wrong with society. That's
it wouldn't make my list.
It's a tough one.
It wouldn't make my top 10,000 list of problems in the world.
Yeah.
Lack of meal prep would be in my top 100.
Well,
doing meal prep is not.
Yeah. The thing that struck me immediately about this, which I said to you, was that, well, the question that first arises is, okay, what is meal prep? Like, what is that? Like, what is it that we're complaining about? Like, what?
That's a good place to start. Is what is the subject?
What is the subject that is representative of everything wrong with society? So, meal prep is cooking your week's worth of, say, lunches ahead of time, storing them carefully in, individual meal-sized containers, so that you can then eat those meals throughout the week. So that on, Sunday, you cook, say, a whole bunch of chicken, broccoli, whatever it is you want to eat for that week. You cook a whole bunch of it at once, and you put it in Tupperware, in their own little Tupperwares, portioned properly per meal.
Or just a Ziploc bag. I mean, anything. Doesn't even have to be as formal as Tupperware. You can separate it in literally anything that'll last a few days.
Right. And then over the course of the next few days, while it's still fresh, you eat it. So what came to mind for me immediately was like, this is just a thing that has to do with time. It's just how you're utilizing your time, because you could just eat those meals. You could cook those meals and then eat them each day, or you cook several of the meals at once and then eat them each day. Just reheat them and eat them each day. Either way, all you're doing is doing what you were going to do anyway ahead of time, rather than doing it on the day.
It's cook 5 times and eat 5 times, or cook 1 time and eat 5 times.
Right. Thank you.
This is a difference of 4 cookings. 4 times in your life, you don't have to cook. That goes away. That is what meal prep is. Yeah. So, I mean, it's also, people want to make sure that they're eating decent food, because when you do decide at the last minute what you're going to eat, it's easier to make suboptimal choices. Right. And so if you've prepped the meals, you're locked into eating the thing you've made. And if that's good, well, that's nice too. But the core of it really is what you said, which is, this is for the sake of time. And that's for one person too. If you have to make meals for, let's say, a family of 5, 2 adults, 3 kids, that's not unheard of in this world. It's a lot. It's a lot to do even simple things like making 5 sandwiches takes some time, a lot more than slapping together one for you. So if you have to make food for several people, you got to streamline this for everybody's sake, or all you're going to do all day long is make food, hopefully in time for people to be hungry.
Well, yeah, it's almost like if you have to do laundry, it's like, do you do a big load of laundry that washes all the clothes at once, or do you wash one shirt at a time over the course of a week? What's the difference? Isn't that essentially the same? It's the same concept.
One is highly individualistic and capitalistic, and it's the one where you do all the laundry together, apparently.
Right. So what does that mean? That's my question to you. Do you have any sense of, well, okay, I think there are two questions. One is, what does it even mean, what this person is saying? And two, what would be the downside of meal prep? Like, what is this evil lurking in our society that's representative of its ruin in meal prep?
I want to be fair to...
What's the connection?
I mean, you do miss a few things when you meal prep, right? You're not, cooking is a nice thing to do with somebody else. It really is. If you can find a way to exist in a kitchen with somebody without the two people wanting to use knives on each other, when you get that down, cooking is a lot of fun. It's really nice. It's a community-based thing. So is serving food to people. Cooking for a family, as hard as it is to keep up with cooking for a family, a lot of people who do it really enjoy the act of giving all that food to everybody. And then you sit down and you eat it together, and so like yanking a thing out of the Tupperware or out of the fridge, microwaving the Tupperware and, going to your goon cave to eat it, that's the opposite of community, right? So it does encourage a bit of an individualistic kind of, I get that. I mean, I'm trying to be as charitable as possible here, right? They lose me at the capitalist part because I think they're thinking that, okay, you're meal prepping for yourself. You're doing this. Screw everybody else in the world. You're not having these communal experiences. You're not sharing the grocery buys as well. You're not buying a big turkey and eating it with everybody. You're buying a little package of sliced turkey at a markup for you. And that's, a lesser system to this woman. But what's the alternative? What the alternative here is that you spend all of this time, like you mentioned, time that you're not using to be useful to other people, not useful. You're not relaxing. You're just pissing away time because you've chosen to make one sandwich 5 times instead of 5 sandwiches once.
And the cleanup.
Cleanup
is huge,
especially if you're actually cooking.
Yeah.
That's why I love crock pots. I love slow cookers because you make a tremendous amount of food and then you clean one big thing, which is really easy to clean because it's porcelain. That's it. The end. If I make eggs every single day, I'm washing a pan every single day. So anyway, so how is being really efficient about it a bad thing? There's no way that's a bad thing. If you selfishly use your time, okay, I guess, but that's not built into the system. That's you making a dumb choice. But I don't know, you've got these kids spending less time prepping food so that you can sneak in reading a story to your toddler. Oh, that's evil. That's horrible. Those capitalist monsters. Shut up.
Well, and
that's so stupid.
Isn't it? Wouldn't it be more of a sign of privilege to have the time to cook and clean up all day long? Isn't that more of a luxury rather than someone who's trying to be more efficient because, they have to work more or they have someone they need to take care of or they have other responsibilities? Isn't it more bougie to be at this point just cooking and cleaning all day?
You'd think so. I mean, it does. So again, I've tried to be really charitable with this. Meal prepping does encourage bulk buying because you're dealing with mass amounts of food at one time. By default, you're doing that. So a little thing in the tweet, which didn't come out when Kevin read it, is that realize is spelled with an S. You know who does that? Not people from Kentucky. Not people from Colorado. People from islands near Europe. They use the S instead of the Z. It's so common from the UK all through Europe to grocery shop several times a week in small amounts. You'll go by, the store and get things for 2 days, things you need immediately, and then you go and use them. Way more so than like loading up the semi truck and going to Costco. And so you could say that, like, yeah, it kills the butcher shops, it kills the small grocers, it kills the bakeries, because you're having to go buy in bulk to do your selfish meal prepping. That's not wrong, but everybody can't win here. Everybody can't win. And this person is choosing winners and losers arbitrarily and just saying, well, anybody who doesn't like my winners is stupid and an ignorant capitalist scum.
So here's my theory. Are you ready for my theory?
Yes.
My theory is this person has a roommate that wasn't sharing their food anymore because they were meal prepping. That's my theory. And I think it's a sound theory, is that they were no longer getting free meals out of this person that they're living with because they decided to start meal prepping, which was like, isolating the meal for themselves. Hence the individualistic aspect of this.
I like that. I bet that's close to it. And all of a sudden, she's got to buy her own groceries. She's got to make her own food. It's not a shared affair anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, oh, this sucks. It was so much better when we did it all together. And we boiled a whole pound of spaghetti. Oh, I'm sorry, 500 grams of spaghetti instead of, now I have, what am I going to do with this whole pot of spaghetti?
Yeah.
It's like, I have to count out the spaghetti strands. And this is so capitalistic.
Yeah. They're no longer sharing their spaghetti with me because they're meal prepping it ahead of time and locking it away.
That's right.
In the prison of Tupperware. So
yeah,
I'm going to go to
Mind
Twitter.
You, this roommate is saving money, saving time, probably getting healthier. And this slob is sitting in the corner crying about having to all of a sudden be responsible for her own food.
That's my theory. It's the only scenario I can envision in which any of this even comes to fruition at all. That this thought even comes out.
I feel like we got angsty over the last few months. I got angsty over the last few months.
Define angsty.
I don't even want to entertain what this woman is saying because it's just, okay, this is the other thing that we didn't mention about this, okay? The smug, do people realize? Oh, I figured it out, but you're all so stupid. You're so stupid and selfish. Do people realize with an S?
Right.
That the concept of meal prep. So this isn't like, some people shouldn't meal prep because they miss out on this and that. I'd buy that. I wouldn't take it all that seriously, but I'd be like, yeah, okay, that's not wrong. But no, this is the concept of meal prep. No, this is a big societal thing. And then, of course, it represents everything wrong with society. It doesn't. It's not related to the big problems in the world. All of this is stupid. So she puts that whole thing together and it's like, there are 8.x billion people in the world and every single one needs to hear this. I'm glad there's a translate this tweet link at the bottom so that the people in Zimbabwe can translate my genius meal prep English tweet into the language they need.
Yeah.
Like, it's the most arrogant, out of touch, idiotic tweet that I've seen in minutes.
Yeah, I thought it was a good one, just mainly because of the disconnect between something that is objectively innocuous, like you said earlier, like on the list of societal issues, meal prep isn't even scraping the top 1,000. It's just not. And then conflating that with this innocuous thing being directly representative of the worst of human society. You might as well have said like bouncy castles are representative of the worst of human society, or ball pits.
That would be a stronger argument.
Do you realize ball pits represent the worst of civilization?
I would hear that one out. This one I'm not willing to at all. And okay. So the part that bothers me is that Delusional Takes just has the screenshot. You know what? Let's look her up because I want to see what the comments are. We didn't do that, did we?
No, but the account's probably locked at this point.
It is.
Yep, there you go.
It is. It's wiped. It is wiped and gone. Joined May 2011. 13 and a half years down the drain over a meal prep tweet.
What a world. I'll never not be amused by how strange the world is and how strange people are. It'll always be funny to me.
Very few people will meal prep like supreme pizzas for the week, right? They're meal prepping things that are decent.
Well, most of the time. It's a big part of fitness routines. Like when you're getting in and you're learning about healthy eating and you're getting into, living a healthy lifestyle and integrating fitness regularly into your routine, meal prep is a huge, huge part of that because it gives you an opportunity to really focus on portion size and getting like certain vegetables and certain proteins integrated into your like daily eating habits. So yeah, I mean, there is like a direct line between meal prep typically and healthy eating because you're right. Like, I don't think people are putting Twinkies in their meal prep. That would be pretty strange.
So reframe this tweet. I've got to pull it back. Do people realize that the concept of making 5 healthy meals that will improve your health for the people you care about, for your own well-being, for your job performance, which is presumably useful to other people in the world, is hyper-individualistic capitalist?
Well, and
represents everything wrong with society.
And unlock time to spend being more productive or spending time with your family, having coffee with your mom because you're not having to spend an hour cooking. Yeah. And you can go see grandma instead. Like there are a million more valuable things that you could do with that time that you've saved.
Guaranteeing that you eat a nutritious, healthy meal every night for a week is horrible. That's what her tweet says. If you're a parent, it's actually really easy. We were talking about desserts and stuff like that. If you eat like trash, you have a lot less energy and focus to deal with your kids properly. Like we've talked a million times about if you eat and sleep like trash, you're not all that great with work. Any of the creative stuff, you're just suboptimal there. So guaranteeing that you don't eat like trash is so obviously a wonderful thing for everyone in the world, from your individual self to being just a little bit less likely that you're having to go to the hospital to deal with some, preventable condition. Why? How could you possibly call this a capitalist thing? If you are a socialist and you have fully socialized medicine, it's not fully socialized in the UK, but compared to the US, we can call this, state medicine with the NHS. You are doing everybody a favor by taking care of yourself. You are literally making the entire national system have a tiny bit less of a burden because you took responsibility and you're trying to live in a healthy way. The kind thing to do as a socialist or a communist, if you give a shit about anybody else, is to eat as well as you can. And meal prepping would presumably make that a bit easier and cheaper. So even trying to be on her side, which I'm not much of a communist, trying to be on her side, I'd be like, look, you're an idiot. You don't care about us. Everything is wrong here. What do you think she does for a job? So the username ends in 1997. So we could guess that's probably an age. She's probably 26, 27. What do you think her life is like?
Oh man, we've both been watching a lot of Caleb Hammer recently,
Oh yeah, he's great.
and so I've been, seeing a lot of the jobs that the people that go on Caleb Hammer's show do.
Mhm.
I would think it would be something like a Caleb Hammer job where, maybe they work in some sort of customer service where they're answering phones all day, something like that.
Yeah, okay.
That kind of job.
Okay. Which is, we're not talking somebody making 200,000 a year. So that's even kind of more of an argument that meal prepping would improve your life if you're on a smaller budget.
Oh, I would think that would. I'm surprised I haven't come to an episode of Caleb Hammer where he talks about that. Have you seen one?
He does.
He does. Okay.
He does.
Okay.
Yeah, I think he has a guide for people. So I didn't know about this guy until Kevin showed him to me just a few weeks ago. Caleb Hammer is a YouTuber who does these financial audits. He's really entertaining about it. He sits down with somebody who's in a tremendous amount of bad debt. Bad debt meaning high interest, unnecessary stuff like credit card debts, as opposed to like really low interest student loan debt. Like that's not, it's not great debt, but it's not, 30% a year credit card debt. It figures out how much money they make, what they spend their money on, what they need to focus on instead. Almost all these people eat out. Oh, and I bet that's another argument that she has. Like, okay, if you're meal prepping, you're not patronizing any local restaurants, cafes. How do they survive if you're just, grinding your chicken and broccoli every week? Which, again, that's a legitimate thing. Yeah, it totally takes business away from those people. But yeah, he has a thing where it's like he's mentioned meal prep systems so that people can spend like $300 a month and eat really well. I don't know what it entails. I think 300 is way too high. I would not do that. I would do 300 a month until you had a certain set of kitchen tools. I would buy the slow cooker as part of that 300, that kind of thing. Well, at a certain point, you have all the money you need. You drop down to between 100 and 150 and life is good. But anyway, yeah, this doesn't seem to me like somebody who's engaged with any of the problems that we've said this tweet has. So like spending time with the kids. I don't see her as probably having kids. Cooking for a family. Probably not. Really working hard to use that spare time, that free time, to be useful to herself or others. I'm judging based on nothing at all, but nothing strikes me as being like, oh, she's, fundraising for UNICEF in every spare second of her life.
Right. It's
Like,
taking
no.
away her soup kitchen time.
Yeah. But it was remarkable, though, that this single sentence, and I think it is one, isn't it? Yes. Do people realize, with an S, one sentence, how much is in there? Not just what's wrong with what she put in there. She covered a lot of ground.
Yeah. Well, it's a good writing lesson. Maybe someday we'll do a podcast about good writing. I mean, it's excellent writing. We've learned, or at least inferred, whether it's correct or not, certainly a lot about her character with that one sentence. And that's really what you're trying to do with good writing.
We talked about it for 20 minutes, one sentence.
Yeah, that's great. I think that's enough on the meal prep thing, but it also just wanted to give everybody a little bit of a, behind the scenes look into what this sort of stuff Matt and I, when we're not recording a podcast, talk to each other about. These are the kinds of things we just find really interesting. What have we been?
She has very obviously dyed hair in her profile picture as well. All right. What is so communally beneficial about that? It's not capitalist to go to whatever Britain's version of Hot Topic is and get some electric pink, whatever. What is the goddamn purpose of that? But, okay. No. There's no. The things that represent stuff that's wrong with society, it's definitely not that. That's not individualistic. Needlessly dyeing your own hair for your own vanity's sake. That's not individualistic or capitalist. But you know what? Putting chicken and broccoli together so you don't die of diabetes is actually the problem.
Look, I'm buttoning this topic.
Yes.
With
it'll just go on.
It will just go on. I just want to go back to my theory that the roommate is no longer sharing their meals with her. And that's what set her off. Right. That's my theory. I
really bet you're
settling in on that being the impetus for this screed. So where have we been? Well, let's back up a little bit since I think we last recorded like end of June, maybe beginning of July
of this year of 2024.
2024. Well, what happened was what had happened was I got enamored and completely consumed by a Polaroid Polavision camera that just swallowed everything sort of like a black hole for a really long time, way longer than I expected. It pulled way more people into its orbit than I expected. And that gigantic domino toppled over so many things that it changed everything. All of a sudden, it's literally December, and you and I are like breathing comfortably to a point in which we are recording another podcast.
We're off life support. That's the best I'm willing to do on this.
No longer
that we're off life support.
Yeah,
and we were totally on life support for a long time. But you're 100% right that the decision to go in that direction, it literally changed absolutely everything for both of us. Because with that project, which if you haven't seen it, what's the title of it?
Oh, I changed it. I think it's now.
I don't watch your videos. I don't know these things.
No one should. It's I think it's the $65 million or $68 million disaster that killed Polaroid or something like that. Home movie disaster. It's on Popular Science. Just look for the Polaroid.
Can you give
video.
a description of this video?
Well, yeah. I mean, the description of the video is really why we haven't recorded a podcast in 5 months, whatever it's been. What happened was I got this camera. You actually are the one who told me about this camera. So I will blame you for starting this debacle. You found this camera.
Well, I didn't think you'd do what you did.
Yeah,
that's the issue.
You opened the door and then I just barreled through it for 3 months. You found this camera that Polaroid made that was a movie camera. It was a video camera. It was film, but for the sake of describing it, we'll just call it a video camera.
As opposed to the still cameras that Polaroid was famous for.
Yeah, Polaroid made instant photographs. That's what they built the $1 billion business on the back of, which revolutionized the recording of memories for human beings. It was actually a very big deal, the Polaroid camera. And Edwin Land, who invented it and started Polaroid, wanted to get into capturing video. He thought that was like the next logical conclusion and really like the evolution of, instead of just capturing a still photograph of a memory, well, why not capture a whole video? Anyway, I got one of these cameras. It took me months to find a player. So with the proprietary cassette tape, photo tape that the camera used, you had to play it within Polaroid's proprietary projector. There was no other way to watch what you had just filmed unless you stuck it in this very specific Polaroid projector. Most of them do not work anymore, okay? It's been a long time since these things were manufactured, and they're basically all broken. I got one, finally. So I'm like, all right, great, let's go. I'll make a video with the camera. I'll watch it on the projector. That'll be it. Well, the stumbling block on progressing this idea is that the photo tapes are all dead. So the photo tapes worked similarly to Polaroid film, in which it used a chemical reagent to develop the film. The chemical reagent, which was liquid at one point, is now dust. They're all dried out. It's literally just dust inside the tape, and the dust will not develop the film. So you cannot record with this camera anymore. It just will not work. Doesn't function. Being stubborn, I continued to look for ways in which I could find a Polavision tape that would work. I found a video on YouTube by a guy named Analog Resurgence, I think, who made a video called The Last Polavision Tape. And he had received a tip, like an anonymous tip from somebody on the internet, in which some guy in Germany had a couple of tapes in cold storage for the last 35, 40 years. And because they were in like a refrigerator, the liquid didn't dry out. It was preserved. The chemical reagent was preserved. It worked perfectly well. He popped it in his camera. He recorded a short film of his family, watched it on the projector. It was beautiful. I asked him if that guy had any more. Of course he didn't. And then I kept going. And I was just searching for like Polaroid people, like anyone who is obsessed with Polaroid that I could contact and just say, hey, do you have any Polavision tapes in cold storage? I figured somebody else would.
Somebody's got to have it somewhere in the world, right?
Somewhere in the world, at some point, someone who is obsessed with Polaroid, you would think would throw them in a fridge, like this man in Germany had. I ended up finding this guy, Doc Caps, who actually has a documentary made about him because he saved the last Polaroid factory in the world from being scrapped for metal over in the Netherlands. The film is called, I think, An Impossible Project. You can watch it on Amazon Prime.
Yeah. Yep.
And so I emailed him. I emailed Doc. I said, hey, do you have... I'm like, hi, I'm Kevin from America. I make YouTube videos. Do you have any Polavision tapes in cold storage? He responded right away. It was freakish how quickly he replied.
Wasn't it like 15 minutes?
I think it was 18 or 19. It was within 20.
Yeah, that's nuts.
It was right away saying, yes, that he has, he has a whole bunch of cold storage Polavision tapes just waiting for some visionary to make their next masterpiece. And after you and I looked into him a little bit more and we learned about him saving the last Polaroid factory, and then the fact that he has this like Willy Wonka factory of his own, divorced from Polaroid, of just saving different analog technologies, everything from cutting vinyl records one at a time to doing the last peel apart instant film in the world. I was like, we should just...
To having a restaurant on the ground floor that only operates with analog items. I mean, like wood-fired ovens and things like that. So it's not just the tech. Like he truly has a functioning, excellent restaurant that matches that philosophy. So it was a lot to discover, wasn't it?
It was everything. Yeah, the dishes in the restaurant are all made by hand in a pottery studio, like in the back. Like all of it was just like, what is this and who is this guy? And so rather than just asking him to send me the tapes, I was like, we need to go to Vienna, which is where he is, and do a whole feature-length documentary about the Polavision and my experience with it and going over there and trying to get the tape to work and the whole shebang. It's like, let's turn this into a movie. And that turned into having absolutely no life at all from August until really kind of like now.
It changed everything. It changed things for me because all of a sudden the stuff that I'm working on is not the usual grind. It changed things for the editors who were, they expected to edit these, 20-minute videos and some, shorter stuff and whatever, and constant succession as we've done since the beginning of time. It was a different style video. So actually making the thing was a totally blank process at that point that we had to not do the thing that we've become so efficient and so meal preppy good at over more than a decade, It's like, oh, let's do this completely differently out of nowhere. The timeline on this was weeks. It was like 3 weeks out from the actual travel date. And then figuring out, okay, we got to shoot this too. Spenceroni and Cheese in the Discord. You guys will see him now and again. He came with us and did the camera work. All of this stuff is different than anything with popular science so far. But also, when was the last time there was a thing like that on Vsauce 2? Out of studio, like go and do a thing.
A long time, literally years ago. I think the last one might
pre-COVID. So
yeah, pre-COVID,
definitely before 2019,
5 or 6 years ago. I think the last one was the Navy video, that the battleship thing.
That's it.
Which was completely different because we didn't have to organize any of the production of that. So the Navy video that we did had a full production team on site already waiting for us to arrive. And they dealt with all of the shooting and all of the data dumping and all of the coordination and all of the things. They dealt with all the things.
We didn't have to do any logistics, any travel arrangements, anything like that. Doc made it easy on us because, of course, one of the things he has is like a boutique hotel setup in this very big building. So that too. And it was a beautiful apartment that he let us use for a week. That helped a bit, taking one thing out of the mix that we had to do. But we had to get, with very little notice, international flights that made sense financially, getting Spenceroni and Cheese to the same destination from a different part of the country. We had a lot to arrange before we even began. And then, you have two methods with all of this. You decide what you're going to film and do it, or you show the thing as it develops and you work with what the world gives you. It's sort of like when you wrote papers in school, where a really good research paper is you do the research and then write about what you found, where that research took you. A really bad research paper is deciding what the conclusion is and then writing a paper that supports it. So we did the good research paper style on this, which also meant we landed Vienna with no idea what we're going to encounter, what we're going to do with it, how it's going to be a popular science topic, what is going to get fleshed out of this whole thing that's relevant to the publication. This was a tremendous undertaking.
Yeah. And is the camera going to work? Spoiler alert. No, it didn't. It broke. The camera broke that I, flew across an ocean with. That no longer worked. Okay. Well, now I don't even have a working camera. Luckily, he had a working camera. Well, his projector worked because I wasn't going to fly with the projector, which weighed over 20 pounds and was gigantic.
Yeah, it's big.
And then no, his projector was broken, and we spent an entire day essentially trying to fix it to no avail. So then it still didn't work. So, okay, now we have no way of knowing whether or not what we shoot will even develop until we get home. So yeah, it was just like thing after thing after thing. And then all of a sudden, finally, we're back in the US and we have hundreds of gigabytes worth of footage to turn into a video in a style that we're not accustomed to at all. And that ended up taking a really long time and a tremendous, tremendous effort from everyone on our team. Tremendous.
For the first time in Kevin's life, he had terabytes of footage on his hard drive that was legal.
And just no idea what to do with it.
No idea what to do with it. Oh, now what? It's hard to describe what is so monumentally different, because you'd look at it and you'd think this scales the same way. It's just a big YouTube video. That's all it is. And it in a way it is similar, but it was completely and totally different. Everything took a great deal longer. It took more people. It took more coordination. It took more research. It took different kinds of research. When there's a project on that scale that you need every sentence to either matter or be accurate,
or both,
or both, that adds an incalculable amount. The other wild card, which we have not fully appreciated in this conversation, is that when you're dealing with an interview subject, this is a man we hadn't talked to. Kevin, you had a couple minutes on the phone with him, right? That's it.
Yeah, 10 minutes.
No?
10, 15 minutes okay. I talked to him.
This is obviously going to be based in large part on Doc. Well, we saw the Impossible Project documentary, which is years ago. I don't know if it was like 2016 or what. You get a sense of what he's like and who he is, but you don't know what you're going to get at all. It is a total wild card that is out of your control the moment you sit down to interview somebody. You could get anything from them. It could be the most boring stuff ever because somebody has a bad day. Maybe things have changed in their life. They don't want to talk about this anymore. Oh, this documentary came out 10 years ago. He's been talking about Polaroid forever. No more. He's not excited anymore. That could have been possible. It turned out he was absolutely incredible and fascinating and energetic, and we couldn't have hoped for a better person, but we got lucky. That's a total unknown. And we were arriving into that situation not having any sense of what we would get out of the main subject. That is not the same as doing really good research, compiling that, and we go over a script and you record it, Kevin. Like that's total control versus this whole process that Kevin described is virtually zero control. The only thing we had control over was literally the logistics, like the flight and where we slept. And even that, oh my God, it was 90 degrees in Vienna. It was the hottest day in Vienna all year long. All week, it was boiling, hellishly hot in a place that has less respect for air conditioning than we're used to.
Yeah, there was no air conditioning anywhere.
Oh my God.
Well, and it never gets that hot there. I mean, that was a freakish heat spell that we just happened to walk into. The other thing is that we had no idea what his availability would be. Like, are we going to get him for a day, 2 days, 3 hours? Is he going to ghost us because, he has better stuff to do and isn't that interested in working with us? Who knows? I mean, that's always, and I've said to you privately, I don't think we've ever talked about it on the podcast at all, but one of my huge hangups with doing any sort of travel shoot is that you have no idea when you get on the ground what you're going to be given access to and for how long, and who to ask and who can advocate on your behalf. I mean, to give you guys an example of what I'm talking about. Years ago, I did a video on the Mauna Loa volcano that was in a Mars simulator. So there was this Mars simulator in Hawaii where all of these, I think they called them lavanauts, not astronauts, because they didn't leave Earth. I think they did
give them a funny name, didn't they?
Yeah, I think it was like lavanauts. But this group of, scientists, prospective astronauts, were part of a study on human isolation and sort of what it's like to live with a tiny group of people in a tent for months and months and months at a time. Maybe they were there for a year. It's been a while since I made that video, so I don't remember the exact details. I think they might have been inside there for a year. So imagine like 7 scientists trapped inside like pretty small living quarters for like a year. And they're not allowed to just like go outside because the whole point is that they're simulating living on Mars. So they can't just like jog outside. If they were to go outside, they had to wear like a special containment suit and all of these protocols that they had to go through to match what it would like and simulate properly what it would like to live if they were living on Mars. Anyway, I flew all the way to Hawaii to shoot a video for National Geographic about Mars at the Mars simulator. That was the whole point. Okay. This was like, I don't know, a 12-hour flight or something. And then
they didn't pay for me to go either. So you were on your own.
I was with Eric Langley, who, because I needed somebody to shoot the video, obviously. So Eric Langley, who, did all of the VFX and actually worked with Jake Roper on Could You Survive the Movies. He was the DP and lead VFX artist on Could You Survive the Movies. Go with him. And then however long the bus ride was up to the top of the volcano or whatever, like this was a trek. I get there and they will not allow me to shoot a video there. They said no. I'm like, I came here. I was paid to come here by National Geographic to produce a video about this place. This is the only reason that I'm here. Hello, I'm here in person. My name's Kevin. And I was asked and paid and hired to shoot a video here. And they were like, yeah, no, we're not going to let you do that. Like, you have to leave. Like, everybody's leaving. It was a press event. So they had a whole bunch of press there from, whatever, the New York Times and whoever showed up to cover the simulated astronauts finally leaving their SMARS tent. That was the event that I was there for. So once that event was over and everybody got their interviews with the astronauts, they were kicking everybody out. They were like, I don't know who told you that you could make a video here, but you can't do that. So anyway, long story short, I beg the person who coordinated the thing, and they beg another person, and they beg another person. And after all of that begging, they allotted me like 15 minutes. 15 minutes. Like, okay, you have 15 minutes to shoot whatever your stupid, silly thing is, and then you have to leave. So that's what frightens me about travel shoots, is that no matter like what the stakes are or who says what or what credentials you have to shoot whatever you're supposed to be shooting, once you actually get there, kind of all bets are off. And the people who
you never know.
The people who run the thing have no idea why you're there, and they don't care.
No.
And it just becomes like an absolute circus in order to get the thing done that you went to go do. So, that was at play here with the Vienna trip as well, on top of having a deadline where we have to catch a flight home at some point, because that's all booked and we're not changing those flights because it would be insanely expensive.
Right.
So it's like, okay, everything that we came here to do has to be done by Saturday. No matter what it is.
Yeah.
Because then we have to leave.
We had no wiggle room at all on that. The way the calendars worked out too, we weren't able to put in buffer days or days that could catch anything we had to push or couldn't do or hit a problem with. So we needed to have everything go right. And what didn't go right, which was nearly everything, we had to adapt immediately. There's no plan B. There's finding a way to do something with the plan A you had. That's it. That's a totally different thing than having a plan B. So, yeah, there was a lot of uncertainty with everything, and you hope it's good. It's got to be good. You're putting a lot of time and effort and, some money into it. It has to be a worthwhile endeavor. So this also fit with us looking at the content that has been coming out with Popular Science for this year, and also broadly online, and what we know how to do really well, and thinking, how do we do something with that combination? How do we do something that draws on our experience and what's out there and the money we've got to work with, and it just every limitation and asset? And we're like, okay, it's we got to do something really substantial that's not an opinion-based YouTube-y, or even like, here's my experience with the thing, follow me doing this. No. It's easy. Well, not easy, but easier to do that for an hour. Because you're like shooting things in real time, so You can walk down a street through a market for 3 minutes. And obviously the appeal of the video is showing you experiencing this market and showcasing it, right? That's, 3 minutes. Well, coming up with 3 minutes of really tight informational stuff takes a lot longer. So if you're looking at doing over an hour of that, which I forget the exact runtime at the end on this, but it was like an hour, 10 minutes. Doing that in a really short period of time, which start to finish was roughly 2 months. From us doing a little bit of prep and, landing, shooting, writing, editing, pushing, publish on the video, it was like a 2-month grind, which is insane for a project of that length. That is absolutely bonkers to do something like that in a 60 to 90 day period.
Most documentaries take years.
Years. They take years. And they're going to come out to be, $1,000 to $2,000 per minute of final footage. Something you see on Netflix is over that. The Jinx on HBO was over that. So yeah, things go higher, but we did not spend, $150,000 on an hour, 10-minute video. Obviously we did not do that. So getting it done in that time frame, to showcase a new dimension for popular science was an endeavor that came out of nowhere and just, again, literally changed everything for us and the people who work with us.
And the big thing that people who listen to this podcast who make YouTube videos will know is that once the video is uploaded, it's like, okay, when's the next one? That's what the audience thinks. Yeah. That's what everyone who works with you thinks. That's what the next step is, yeah, cool. Thanks for the new video. Where's the next one? And with this project that took months to make, once that video was uploaded and everyone starts thinking, okay, what's the next one? It was like, oh, okay, now we're really, really far behind on what the next one is. So not only did it take a couple months plus to make that one, okay, great. Now we are like a month behind on the rest of what we need to make. Because once you hit publish, you got to have the next one pretty close to being ready to hit publish. And we were nowhere near pretty close on anything. So then it went from like...
Well, we'd maxed out the editors. That was really the big thing, is that we nearly killed... We nearly killed the people who made that video happen. And they didn't have the bandwidth to do the other projects in tandem. And we thought, well, that's okay. But there's one more element to this too. You say, well, the next one. Unfortunately, people like the Polaroid video. Unfortunately, it was a worthwhile endeavor. So this means, we need those next ones that Kevin's talking about, but we also need another video like Polaroid. Doesn't have to be immediately, but there's got to be another one of those eventually, and with more time to do it and plan it and edit it and all this. So we then have to remake the system again for everybody involved so that we can now do those normal videos while also layering in the big projects and have everybody be reasonably comfortable and happy, have all the budgets make sense, all of this stuff. So this model that we had really carefully developed in the first half of the year, we mostly had to throw it out. We took pieces of that. Obviously, it's not a total reset, but you think you're in a groove. Things are going nicely. It's beginning to get awfully smooth. It's like, no. Let's totally complicate this with a radically different, larger scale thing on top of what we're already doing. Well, we did it. We sorted that out. We can breathe now. But it dominated life from July until, I mean, it still is now, but we're here. So that's something.
There's light at the end of the tunnel now, which is why we're recording a podcast. There was no light at the end of the tunnel. It was just tunnel for a while. And that's why, people were sending messages. Why aren't you recording the podcast? What happened to the podcast? Is the podcast dead? And I'm like, I have absolutely not one single neuron in my brain right now available for the podcast, for anything at all. It's like all synapses are collected in this one little Polaroid bucket. And then the fallout from the Polaroid bucket, which took a really long time to sort of gather the pieces from and figure out like how we live. It sounds dramatic, but it is
all
that
of us,
level.
Not just us.
Yeah.
But the editors, Spenceroni and Cheese, Ben W. Literally everybody has to live in a way that is sustainable and reasonable, while also meeting, the deadlines that it's the strangest thing that this company, it pays us to do things, and then they actually want us to do things. So we have to show them that, we have to do what our jobs are, and so we had a new set of pieces that fit together differently. And it took a little shimmying, took a little jostling, a little finesse. But it kind of happened. And also on the podcast front, our times began to mismatch after Vienna. Our physical time zone times began to mismatch because things popped up for me, which, Kevin does this life ruining thing. It's fine if Kevin wants to ruin his own life. If he wants his parents to disown him, wants to break up his marriage, wants his cat to hate him.
If I want to prep
that's
meal,
fine.
But I'm not prep mealing for you.
Yeah, if you want to destroy your entire community by meal prepping chicken. But right after we got back, got an opportunity to go back to Armenia. So producer Ben went with me for that. And that was the beginning of us being out of phase with scheduling. It's a little harder. It's not impossible at all to do the radically different time zone things. We've certainly interviewed people in, European time zones, etc. Mini Kudos being, 12 hours away. That was as far as we could get. So it's just not easy. And with Kevin, you being in that Polaroid grind, the opportunities to match up were just very slight. They were just slight. And that was the beginning of logistics on podcasts being very difficult. The irony is that through all of this, we had a million things to talk about. We could have done 10 hours of podcast a week and it would have had substance right at the time when it's becoming impossible to do it.
Yeah. And the biggest disappointment to me, honestly, is that we just talking to Zach and Michael about Smiling Friends season 2 just slipped right through our fingers, which now that we're recording again, I can reach out to Zach and we could, bring that back and actually make that happen. But, that was literally supposed to happen. That was supposed to happen in July, I think, maybe beginning of August. And then I just disappeared. It was my fault.
I like this timing, though, because I like that interim, because nobody gets anything between seasons, Like you get the odd update and that's it. But I really like the timing if we're able to talk to them, this month or January, something like that. That's cool. That, you're not like fresh off the heels of the season. It's like, no, let's just talk about everything. I like that timing. It would be like watching a meaningful football game in June. I'd be like, oh, hey,
football.
That is pretty good. Yeah.
It's nice.
Yeah. Since Austria, I don't think I've been home for more than 9 days at a time. And that has made things difficult as well. We followed up the Polaroid project. So, Ben and I were in Armenia for a couple weeks, and that was good. Scouted out some really interesting things, including some possibilities for a Soviet retro tech video. Like, I actually played a Dendy, which I wonder if anybody listening to this knows what the Dendy is. It was the Soviet NES clone in the 80s. I never thought in my entire life I would actually play one with my hands and eyeballs. But I actually got to play a Dendy. I can't believe it. So I looked at that, and, Ben was there, and we're like, oh yeah, Kevin needs to make a Dendy video. So we were scouting for stuff like that through all of that. I was back home for a week or so. And after that, the next big project for Popular Science involves a man who invented something in Albania during the brutal dictatorship from the 40s to 1990, give or take. So I mean, it was hopping around Albania, and to give you a sense of that, Kevin talking about the anything can happen, anything can go wrong, whatever-ness of these projects. The day we got there, the afternoon we got there, we threw out the entire reason for going, because we found a better project. We found a better idea. So all of a sudden, knowing no one, speaking no Albanian, with everything we'd prepped for being flushed down the toilet. Well, I love it. It was so good. Like, we're going to have a good video. But those things happened, and it wasn't awesome. It's very hard to deal with. Then I was home for a bit and spent a couple weeks in Argentina, which is a non-Popular Science project. But, meanwhile, the normal work has to get done. This is what Kevin was talking about with the big projects. All the normal stuff has to get done in addition to all these. Oh, something else. The morning after I got back from Armenia, I got back at midnight. Finally got home, pulled the car in, went straight to bed. At 6 a.m, I wake up. There's something in my mouth. You never want to wake up to something in your mouth. You just don't. This is just a policy, right? If you wake up and there's something in your mouth, whatever happens next is going to be worse for your life. Like, nothing gets better when you wake up. And it was one of my teeth. Over 10 years ago, I took an elbow to, what's it called? It's the first tooth past the canine. It's got a real name, but I can't think what it's called. I took an elbow to that, and it was sort of like when I was in a bar in Bulgaria, and it hurt, but it wasn't anything. It wasn't a crisis. Well, it turns out what happened.
Was this an intentional elbow or an accidental elbow?
It's complex. You'd have to go to the instant replay, but we're gonna say unintentional.
Okay.
Tragic accident. In a karate movie when it's like, ooh, demonstrate your prowess by breaking only the bottom brick.
Mm-hmm.
You know this trope.
Yeah.
Well, that's sort of what happened, where the actual tooth was fine, but it shattered the root. So the force went up and broke the unseen. Well, over the years, that got worse and worse, and the tooth lost its integrity, and life was bad. And eventually it had enough and just jumped out of my gums, which meant the day after I got back, I needed emergency surgery, because at that point they have to go all the way up and deal with that, which the only way I could get it done in time before going to Albania was not in an actual surgical setting. So it was like local anesthetic and the brute force way. That was terrible. And I had an infection develop after that. I was on the plane to Albania hoping the antibiotics would kick in because I was sweating from the fever. I was sitting on the plane sweating, thinking, "Oh God, please don't get worse when I'm in the Balkans."
Yeah, they think you have COVID, and meanwhile you're like, it's my tooth.
Well, at least at that point, I had a gaping hole in my mouth to prove that I wasn't lying. But I didn't get any rest. I didn't get any. No, there was no recovery period. Immediately, I was on a plane back to Albania, which I'd never been to either. So it's not like I was going into a comfortable situation. Couple weeks there, back, not enough recovery. Went to Argentina, which was great. Got back in time for Thanksgiving on that. By the time this episode comes out, I will be in Moldova, because you got to sneak in a thing like that before you've got to go to Moldova and solve the Ukraine conflict. You just cross the border, you walk over the border, do what nobody's been able to do in 3 years, and then you go home for Christmas. That's my plan. But eventually I'll be back, in time for Christmas, and we'll, I need to recover. I need to not feel the way I feel right now from head to toenails. But at the same time, I feel really good that at my advanced age, when it comes to this sort of thing, it all went off without a hitch. I survived. I kept up with the fetuses who are half my age. It was all right. And I didn't think it was going to be. I actually thought there'd be some trouble on that score. So I lived. That's enough of a win for now. There's one more left to go. I'm not going to count the chickens. But yeah, it's hard when, you're not at the desk to do those podcasty things. But the beauty of all of this, everything I've just said, all the stuff Kevin said, is that we have a really clear picture of 2025 and how we're going to go about it. It was thrust upon us in July in a way that we had not like laid the groundwork to deal with. So we had to sort of like build the runway in front of you as the plane is taking off, sort of thing. Well, now we built the runway, and the terminal is fully active. There's the occasional delay at the gates.
Well,
but what can you do?
The other thing with the dock thing, and the last thing on this that we just didn't mention, is that he also had a time window in which he was available. So that's why. Oh, that's why. We didn't mention this to begin with. That's why it was rushed, is because he was available in August and not in September, October, November. Like, he had a window in which he wasn't super busy, that he could dedicate the time to dealing with us. So that's why it was like, okay, we can only have this one window to go and do this. It's not like we can spend a month prepping and be ready for it and whatever. Right. It was like, and then the other thing that happened was the Vidionics video that I made like a few weeks ago. That was supposed to be the August tech video. Now we're getting like a little bit into how the sausage is made, but that Vidionics video was supposed to be the August video. That Vidionics video was a freaking nightmare because I couldn't get the thing to work, which if you've watched the video now that it's out, right, you can see what a nightmare I had trying to get that thing to work. It took me literally a month after we got back from Austria. It took me a month after to get that freaking thing to work. So what ended up happening was I needed to get some video out in August, and I got that Aura Interactor VR backpack video game thing, and then just completely scrambled out of my mind to make that video as quickly as possible so that we had a video before we left for Vienna. So that's why August ended up being insane, even though we didn't leave until the end of August. It's like the thing that I was going to make a video on, well, the first thing I was going to make a video on, we turned into a movie. And then the next thing I was going to make a video on would not work. So then I had like a week to put together something, which was the Interactor video. Then we do Polaroid. That ends up being a huge project. And then the Vidionics thing ended up being a nightmare after that. because I couldn't get that to work. So it was just like chaos for a while.
Yeah, now that we're actually doing a real postmortem on this, I don't think I fully appreciated how chaotic it was.
Chaos.
I mean, I knew it. Yeah, but I was thinking of like big chaos, right? So it's like, oh, we got this big project, and then the next one, we do. I was thinking on those like meta chaos. There was micro chaos every hour of every day.
7 days a week.
Micro chaos.
7 days a week. Literally single day.
Everything. Yeah. And there's obviously chaos with anytime you're away from home in an unfamiliar place. Going to Nebraska would not be a big deal if to solve problems. But when you go to a place like in Armenia or Albania or something where you're substantially far from home, you're not matching up on time zones with anybody who can help you with things. There's nothing in your favor is what I'm getting at.
Right.
It's constant micro problems. As simple as this one thing popped where a guy gave us a DVD in Albania, and so that we could rip it and have a copy ourselves. Well, you can't do that if none of our computers have a drive. We had to go and buy an external DVD drive so that we could rip this thing and give him back his DVD. That's not a big problem to solve. If I'm here, I go to Amazon, I have it the next day for $20, whatever. Well, finding out, so the first place we went tried to sell us a Dell external that was used, that was like clearly from like an office, like a corporate buy thing. And we looked around, they didn't have any new things at all. And it was all like corporate surplus. Like, okay. Well, Andy wanted like 40 euros for it. So $50 for a shitty used Dell DVD external. We're like, oh God. Then we had to find another place that would do it. And it's not a place, Tirana is not a place that has, Best Buys everywhere. It doesn't have those big tech places. It's all little things where the websites, if they exist at all, are not in English. Something as simple as finding that DVD drive is much, much more of a project than you'd think it is. We got it done, but when that stuff pops, you've got a micro crisis and you have to invent for the first time the way to solve that particular crisis. And it's constant. It's constant on those trips. You do the best you can to avoid it, but there's no totally avoiding it. Benna, if you're still listening, I see you're in the general chat. If you can think of one of those from Armenia, let me know. We had, oh God, it was a very difficult event in terms of how it was organized. They would tell us to be somewhere at a certain time, and then we would stand around and wait for like an hour, not knowing what we were waiting for or why, or when we would have the relief. A lot of things didn't make sense. Well, when you're trying to get the most out of an event or a place, plus you're trying to deal with all the stuff, the work stuff from back home going on its normal schedule, you have to plan pretty, meal preppy. You've really got to put all the ducks in a row. And when somebody just stomps on one of those ducks and kicks it, and you don't know why, or if they're going to stomp the next duck, you don't know anything, it gets stressful and everything goes off kilter. So something as simple as, oh, you made us wait for an hour, is a small crisis that has ripples throughout the rest of that day and quite likely into the next day. And then the ripples from that next day quite likely go into the one following that. So the simplest little thing is a disaster. It was, for me, 4 months of that.
Yeah.
4 months of that. And Kevin, you
Same.
did, the same. Yeah. And it was the Polavision thing was so big and so complex. It was months of that same process with a different flavor.
Yeah.
Constant crisis.
Yeah. And the Vidionics thing on the back of it didn't help either. It just made the snowball rolling down the hill get bigger and bigger. Like, for instance, what ended up happening with that, and it's so funny because I do try, as part of what I consider to be entertaining about those retro tech videos, I do try to communicate my frustration with the process, which is 100% real and 10 times worse than I ever actually articulate in those videos. 10 times worse to actually go through that than it is to be like, and then I had this problem. It's like, that's kind of all you say in the videos. Like, and then this thing didn't work. It's one sentence that represents like 4 days of nightmare for me. That's really what ends up happening. So I'll just give you like a clear example with the VCR problem I had, where I could not get the Vidionics Directed Plus to sync with the VCRs that I had because they were all set to the wrong record speed and I couldn't change the record speed. So here was like an example of one of my weekends, quote unquote. Friday night, I realized that I need a remote to change the record speed on one of the VCRs that I do have. I like blast it down to the hardware store before they close. They're going to close in like 12 minutes and it'll take me like 9 to get there. So I blast down to the hardware store like 3 minutes before they close. I ended up spending 45 minutes in the hardware store. The whole employee base that were still there were huddled around me, trying to help me find a remote that would work with the VCR. I swear to God to you, this was like a 45-minute process. I have 2 guys in the back digging through boxes, like looking for something that's supposed to be in stock, but it's not on the shelves. Like, this was an ordeal just to get this one remote on this Friday night. Okay. I get home, say by like 8 o'clock. I test the thing. It's not going to work because there's no speed button. Even though I can sync the remote to the VCR and I can get into the settings, there's no speed setting in the settings. Okay, great. New problem. Now, this thing that I just spent, an hour getting is useless. So now it's, like 9 o'clock or whatever on a Friday. And I'm like, okay, I'm over it for today. So now I'm Googling. So I wake up Saturday morning and I'm like Googling thrift stores in my area that may have VCRs. I find a couple. Now I'm calling them. I call this place. Hey, do you have VCRs? No, we don't, but call this number. Okay. Call that number. Hey, do you have VCRs? Yes, we do. Okay, great. Now I'm driving half an hour to a thrift store on a Saturday. I show up at the thrift store. I walk around. There's no VCRs anywhere. So I go to the girl and I'm like, I called earlier and, you said you had VCRs. Oh, we do, but not in this building. You have to leave the parking lot, drive down the road, take a right, and the first building on your right, that's where the VCRs are. Okay. So now I go to this new building. I find the VCRs. Most of them are like VCR DVD combos, which are newer for VCRs. And I know those aren't going to work with my Vidionics. I dig out, like I'm literally digging through like dusty shelves of garbage to try to unearth old VCRs that maybe I think could work. None of them have remotes. I ended up buying 2 of those. So now I drive half an hour home. It's, Saturday afternoon. Try the first one. It doesn't work. I try the second one. It works. But, and when I say it works, that's an hour process to see if it works. Because the Vidionics thing is an hour process just to get like anywhere with the syncing between the VCR and the Vidionics. You have to watch the video to see what the process is, but that's not like a 2-second thing. It's like an hour thing just to see if the thing works or not. First one doesn't work at all. There goes another hour. The second one I plug in, it works, but the record speed is wrong again. Okay. So now these things don't work. So now I am like Facebook messaging and Twitter DMing people that I know in the area, just friends. Hey, do you have a VCR? Yes, I do. Okay, you can come pick it up tomorrow. So now Sunday, I'm meeting with local people that I know to get their VCRs to test those. Those don't work. Another guy says, okay, Monday I'll be around. You could try my VCR. So now the weekend's gone, and now we're back to Monday, and I get another VCR starting from scratch. This one came with the remote, and I was able to do it, blah, 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 blah. But that is the example of just one weekend that was just mired in frustration and garbage to try to make this 20-minute video about a video editing machine no one cares about at all from 30 years ago.
So the best part about listening to all of this is that, number one, I was 9 hours ahead. I couldn't be useful at all. Kevin's on his own. Because if you're going to deal with absolute bullshit, you at least want two people dealing with the bullshit. Like, it's a volume game, right? With things as simple as finding people's VCRs. Like, that's another person who has another network of possible VCRs. You need the volume. So Kevin is N equals 1 on this. As this was happening, I've got my phone on me, and I'm seeing all the updates in Slack and this and that. And like, I can tell that Kevin is like that meme of the kid in class who's like leaning forward and every vein is about to explode on his head. That's how I knew that's the stage he was at. And Ben and I were going through a place in Armenia, and we looked over at a table, and there must have been 200 remote controls on it.
Oh.
They had boxes and boxes of TV and VCR remote controls for who knows what. And Kevin's like, I can't find a remote that'll do this, and it'll change the setting. And we're looking at like every remote ever made. They were all really filthy too. They were so dirty. It was weird. They were grimy.
I bet.
Super grimy. But we're awash. We're awash in the solutions for Kevin, and have no opportunity at all to actually make those solutions happen. So that was a beautiful moment that we experienced. And then I think that was the day that we did go to the Soviet cafe, dinner, tech museum, car museum. It's a lot of old Soviet stuff wrapped into one building, small building. But yeah, so, it's chaos. There's solutions everywhere. Sometimes you can access them. Sometimes you can't.
But every conversation between us, like no less us sitting down to record our podcast, every conversation between us that entire time was essentially like, everything is terrible.
Yes.
Everything.
Yes. Both ways.
Every day it was like, everything is terrible. Oh, okay, sweet. How are things for you? Oh, everything's terrible. Okay, great. Talk to you tomorrow.
Yeah. So Kevin would wake up. I would be at the end of, evening. It would be evening. And so I had a whole day of terrible things to detail. So Kevin wakes up, eats his bran cereal, and drinks his Metamucil and coffee.
My plum,
as he's reading your prune
juice. Yeah.
And gets this Gilgamesh epic of bullshit. And that's how he starts his day. He goes through that. Well, I'm asleep as all of that's happening. So when I wake up to the Slack being full of the total detail of Kevin's horrible life, everything gone wrong. And it was the most twisted, cyclical ping pong game of misery.
Yeah. Yeah. So just to wrap a bow on this, that's where we've been. That's why we haven't recorded a podcast since July. And hopefully we're back now. So I really want to say we have a huge, awesome audience on Discord right now who has joined us for this recording. It is really awesome to see you. It's nice. I mean, I did get a lot of messages from people during our silence that really missed the podcast. And, I just wanted to say sorry that we ghosted. We did the Irish goodbye. I mean, I'm Irish, so I can say that. But yeah, we did a pretty heavy Irish goodbye for a while. but hopefully we're back from now on. And I'm grateful that you haven't abandoned us in our own absence.
We didn't. So we ghosted because we didn't know this was happening as it was happening. And we didn't know when, once we realized it was all happening the way it was, we didn't know exactly when we would be able to pull out of that. We only got a sense of that this week, last couple days. What is today?
Underwater.
Thursday?
Like we've been underwater
Yes. Yep.
this entire time.
Yeah. And you know, we talked about it a few times. I don't think we wanted to just be like, oh, well, mysteriously be patient. Oh, we'll be back. And it's like, no, you just come back when you're back, you know, and do that. But it certainly was a ghost, which is crazy for having done a very long string of episodes for like 6-7 years. But it wasn't, there was no reason to take a break. It wasn't a break.
No,
I don't think either of us needed a break from doing a podcast. I certainly didn't. Yeah. And I missed doing it quite a lot.
No, it was like Dad went out to get milk and never came home. It was like, what happened to Dad? I thought he was just going to get the milk. And now I have no milk and no Dad. But Dad's back. And we have so much milk. We have weeks and weeks of milk prep for you.
We have Polavision milk.
Yeah. So please go watch the Polavision video if you haven't. And then you need to at least get a sense of sort of what caused the train to derail when it did. And other than that, look forward to more podcasts. I will happily get back in touch with Zach and see if we can get the fellas back on to talk about their new Glep plush. I don't know if you saw that.
Yes.
It's sweet.
I did.
Yeah. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Finally. I mean, I thought we complained about that on this podcast years ago.
We did.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're like, oh, yeah, there has to be a Glep plush. What? I'm sorry. This is Taylor. Okay. So Taylor's in the general chat and we're talking about who follows who on Twitter or whatever. He says, oh, follow me. I thought I was. I'm not. I click it. I go to follow him and his Twitter profile picture is me in a koala hat.
Oh,
look at this. I put it in the general.
I don't think I've seen that picture before. When did you post that?
Oh, I don't know.
It must have been a while ago.
That picture is from a while ago. That hat actually, I don't want to say saved my life, but I went out to get the mail.
It stopped a bullet.
And close enough. I happened to be wearing it. It's really padded because the koala head aspect of it is like extremely plush. Went to get the mail. I stepped on some ice and it was cartoonish, slip on a banana peel, go up in the air and parallel to the ground fall.
Wow.
And I hit my head so hard that it echoed. The crack from it echoed across the field. I couldn't move one of my arms. I thought I broke my arm. I thought it was the first time I'd broken a bone in my entire life. It was awful. It was really terrible. The feeling came back. I guess I just like pinched a nerve so badly that I lost feeling for, 2 minutes. But if I hadn't been wearing that koala hat, I at the least have a severe concussion.
This is how Bob Saget died.
How?
He fell and hit the back of his head and died.
Oh, yeah. No, it's I'm not exaggerating.
You could have died.
It's truly, yes, I truly was in a dangerous spot. I was with somebody at that time, so I would have gotten like medical attention, but they laughed. They saw it happen and just laughed.
Oof.
So it would have been a little bit before they realized it was serious. Because it was like going out to the car and, I'm going to grab the mail before we go drive wherever and just, wow.
Well, pratfalls are funny. And then pratfalls wearing a koala hat. I mean, that's really funny. The fact that you almost died is not funny, but
no, it's a great hat.
The visual is pretty humorous.
I know it's funny now. It's funny now that I only have, slowly developing CTE.
Yeah. All right. I want to thank all of our patrons for hanging out with us on this recording. We will not be strangers any longer. Thank you for bearing with us. We'll be back soon. Until then, see you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We make this show with the support of our patrons. 100% of that goes directly to keeping episodes going every week. And the recent support has been amazing. Sidpoke, NRM, Venture Addicts, Weezer Good, you all really do make this show happen. Thank you to the Tots and the Dumpster crew, old and new, who save tiny little lives every month. And thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Clemente de los Santos, Dan the Latch, Demetrius Andrews, Erica, Ferrycoon, Jen Maffasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Monahim, Natsu, Penny Piddler, Ryan Steer, Ryan Kinder, Samuel Manser, Sean S., Sean Malone, and Tom Bidiover. And a tremendous shout-out to our elite baby gang commanders. Atrocious Scuff, Kat, Dojangles, Graham Robertson, James Gallagher, Jeff Davis, Orange Vanilla Coke, Patrick Pister, TCU's personal pilot, Andy, Ryan Carroll, Baseweight, Vinthos, Yeetus Deletus, Jonas Walter, Nathan Robinson, and of course, Trev Stead. You are the elite. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer, editor Ben Webster, Minecraft mogul Laterman, Discord kitten wrangler Conrad, and producer emeritus Dan Yosua. Thanks to Baseweight for use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme. Thanks to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it, and thanks to Main Gear for powering all our PC endeavors. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.